The winter of 1950 in North Korea was brutal. American Marines and soldiers found themselves in a place called the Chosin Reservoir. It was a mountainous and unforgiving land. The temperature dropped far below zero, sometimes reaching -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Fierce winds howled through the narrow mountain passes, making the cold even more dangerous. This was not just a battle against the enemy, it was a desperate battle against the elements. The ground was frozen solid, so hard that soldiers could not dig foxholes for protection. They had to pile up frozen dirt and even the bodies of the dead to create barriers against enemy fire and the biting wind. The cold was a relentless enemy. It seeped into everything. Weapons froze and would not fire. Sea rations turned into frozen blocks of food that soldiers could not eat unless they thawed them over small, risky fires. Morphine syrettes, needed to help the wounded, froze solid. Even blood plasma for transfusions froze. The soldiers were not prepared for this level of extreme cold. Their gear was designed for a more temperate climate. The fight at Chosin Reservoir was not just a military engagement, it became a primal struggle for survival against a landscape that seemed determined to freeze them to death. Every breath felt like inhaling tiny shards of glass. The simple act of moving was exhausting in the deep snow and thin, frigid air. Men huddled together for warmth, their bodies shivering uncontrollably. The nights were the worst. Darkness brought an even deeper cold that seemed to suck the life out of everything. Soldiers tried to stay awake, fearing that if they fell asleep, they might never wake up. The constant threat of frostbite was on everyone's mind. It was a silent, creeping danger that could disable a soldier as effectively as an enemy bullet, slowly turning their hands and feet black. The enemy forces used the terrain to their advantage. They appeared like ghosts out of the snow-covered hills, attacking in waves. The Americans were surrounded and outnumbered, fighting a desperate retreat along a single narrow road. This grueling march became known as one of the most harrowing episodes in American military history. For the men on the ground, every step was a test of will. They carried their wounded comrades, fought off constant attacks, and prayed for a way to escape the frozen hell of Chosin. Their survival depended on their courage and their ability to endure the unimaginable cold. The greatest medical crisis at Chosin was not from bullets, but from the cold itself. A frostbite epidemic swept through the ranks. The standard-issue military boots, known as shoe packs, were a catastrophic failure. These boots had a leather upper portion stitched to a rubber lower part. In theory, they were supposed to be waterproof. However, the design had a fatal flaw. Soldiers' feet would sweat from the intense physical effort of marching and fighting. This moisture would get trapped inside the boots' felt liners. At night, when the soldiers rested, the sweat-soaked liners would freeze solid, encasing their feet in blocks of ice. The results were devastating. Thousands of soldiers suffered from severe frostbite. Their feet would swell, turn numb, and then change color from red to white, and finally to a ghastly black. The pain was excruciating. Many men had to have their toes, feet, or even their legs amputated. The old boots were simply not made for the extreme cold of a Korean winter. They became instruments of injury rather than protection. Soldiers soon learned that their own footwear was one of their greatest enemies. This equipment failure created a massive number of casualties, weakening the fighting force at a critical time. In their desperation, soldiers tried anything they could think of to keep their feet from freezing. They knew that dry feet were warm feet, but keeping them dry was nearly impossible. Some men would try to dry their wet felt liners over small fires, but this was dangerous. It made them a target for the enemy, and the liners often scorched or burned, rendering them useless. Others would try to wear extra pairs of socks, but this only made the problem worse. The added layers made the boots too tight, cutting off blood circulation and trapping even more sweat, which would then freeze. Other tricks were equally desperate and often ineffective. Some soldiers would take off their boots and socks at night and place their bare feet against the warm stomach of a sleeping comrade. This provided temporary relief but was not a practical solution for thousands of men. Others tried wrapping their feet in rags or any spare cloth they could find. They understood the basic principle of insulation, but without a way to manage moisture, their efforts were doomed. These makeshift solutions highlighted the urgent need for a completely new approach to cold weather footwear. The soldiers were fighting a losing battle with the tools they had. The Frostbite crisis in Korea was a wake-up call for the US military. Engineers and scientists were tasked with a critical mission: invent a boot that could keep a soldier's foot warm and dry in the most extreme cold on Earth. They realized that traditional insulation was not enough. The key problem was sweat. No matter how much insulation you added, if it got wet, it lost its ability to keep you warm. The solution they developed was revolutionary. It was based on a simple but brilliant idea called a vapor barrier. This concept would change cold weather survival forever. The result of their research was the insulated combat rubber boot. Soldiers gave it a more memorable name, the Mickey Mouse boot, because its large rounded shape resembled the feet of the famous cartoon character. The boot was made of 2 layers of airtight rubber sandwiched around a thick layer of wool, or felt insulation. This design created a sealed environment for the foot. The rubber layers acted as a vapor barrier. They prevented outside moisture like snow and water from getting in. More importantly, they also prevented the soldier's sweat from reaching the insulation and making it wet. Here is how it worked. A soldier would wear a single pair of wool socks. Their foot would still sweat, and the sock would become damp. However, because the sweat vapor was trapped inside the inner rubber layer, it could not reach the insulation. The insulation stayed perfectly dry and therefore maintained its full insulating power. The soldier's foot was kept warm by its own body heat, which was reflected back by the dry insulation. The dampness inside the boot was a small price to pay for avoiding frostbite, as the foot stayed at a safe temperature. The boot essentially created its own warm microclimate. For even colder conditions, a thicker version was created. This was the Type 2 boot, which soldiers nicknamed the bunny boot because it was white and even larger. It was rated for temperatures as low as -65 degrees Fahrenheit. These boots came with a special air valve. Soldiers were instructed not to use this valve to inflate the boot. It was there to release pressure during high-altitude flights to prevent the boot from rupturing. Using these boots was simple: wear 1 pair of socks, lace them up, and trust the science. This invention was a game-changer, providing a real defense against the cold. The introduction of the vapor barrier boots had an immediate and dramatic impact on the battlefield. Frostbite casualties plummeted. Soldiers who were issued the new boots could operate far more effectively in the brutal Korean winter. They could stay on patrol longer and fight with more confidence, knowing their feet were protected from the cold's crippling effects. The boots saved countless limbs and lives. They were not just a piece of equipment, they were a lifeline. The Mickey Mouse boot became one of the most important technological advancements of the war, a simple solution to a deadly problem. The success of these boots proved the effectiveness of the vapor barrier principle. This idea became a cornerstone of modern cold weather survival and gear design. The concept is simple: keep your insulation dry at all costs. Today, this principle is used in many different types of outdoor equipment. High-end sleeping bags sometimes use a vapor barrier liner to prevent body moisture from degrading the down or synthetic insulation over long trips. Vapor barrier liner socks and clothing are also used by mountaineers and polar explorers to achieve the same effect: maximum warmth with minimum weight. The lessons learned in the frozen mountains of Korea are still relevant today. Anyone who spends time in the cold, whether for work or recreation, can benefit from understanding the vapor barrier concept. The core takeaway is moisture management. Keeping your insulating layers dry is the most critical factor in staying warm. This means choosing the right materials, venting your clothing to let sweat escape, and understanding that sometimes feeling slightly damp is better than letting your insulation get wet and useless. The Mickey Mouse boot taught us that sometimes the simplest ideas are the most powerful. The legacy of the chosen reservoir is one of incredible bravery and terrible suffering. But it is also a story of innovation born from desperation. The Mickey Mouse and Bunny boots stand as a testament to human ingenuity in the face of extreme adversity. They are more than just footwear, they are a symbol of a promise kept, to protect the soldiers who face the harshest conditions on Earth. The boot that saved soldiers from the frozen hell of Chosin continues to inspire the gear that keeps us safe and warm in the cold today, a lasting legacy written in rubber and felt.